Hello everyone and welcome to this video on the opening of Act 2 of Romeo and Juliet. So in our previous video on Act 1 Scene 5, Romeo and Juliet met and fell in love. Act 2 then begins with another prologue. The chorus comes out and says a little kind of summary of what's happened so far. Now old desire doth in his deathbed lie, so Romeo's old feelings for Rosaline are dying away. And young affection gapes to be his heir, so new love wants to take their place. That fair for which love groaned for and would die, with tender Juliet matched, is now not fair. So in other words, Romeo said for Rosaline he would die, but he is newly in love, and compared to Juliet, Rosaline is nothing. Now Romeo is beloved and loves again. So in other words, in this occasion with Juliet, Romeo is actually loved back. That's the big difference, that Romeo's feelings of love and romance are requited by Juliet, are returned. Alike betwixt by the charm of looks, but to his foe supposed he must complain, and she still loves sweet bait from fearful hooks. Being held a foe, he may not have access to breathe such vows as lovers used to. So basically it's saying both of them fell in love with each other for their looks, but that draws him to his enemy. She's fallen in love with someone she should be afraid of because he is an enemy, and he may not even be able to go anywhere near her because he's held a foe, because he's thought of as an enemy. Romeo cannot go to Juliet and say the kind of things that lovers say to each other, because Romeo, of course, could only sneak to get anywhere near Juliet. And she, as much in love, her means much less to meet her new beloved anywhere, but passion lends them power, time means to meet, tempering extremities with extreme sweet. So basically, she's in love too, but she's even less able to go anywhere to see the one she loves, being a 13-year-old girl under sort of house arrest practically in the sort of parental situation she's in. But their passion gives them power and time to meet, making this dangerous time extremely pleasant. So sort of saying the love they have for each other will make them meet. And the prologue there is again a sonnet, be a bit of analysis of that in my ebook. By the way, everything you can see on the screen comes from my ebook, £1.99. There's a link in the description. Please do pick it up. It really helps me to continue making videos. So then we move into scene 1, and this takes place in a lane by the wall of Capulet's orchard. Romeo is sort of leaving the banquet situation, and then he sort of asks himself, can I go forward when my heart is here? Turn back, dull earth, and find thy centre out. So in other words, he's sort of saying, can I leave this place when my heart is in this place? I've got to go back. And he climbs the wall and he jumps down. Benvolio and Mercutio follow. And Benvolio shouts, Romeo, my cousin Romeo. In other words, where are you? And Mercutio says, he is wise and on my lie hath stolen him home. So he's saying, you know what, Romeo's a clever lad. I bet he's just gone home to bed. Of course, dramatic irony again, where the audience knows something the characters don't. We know he hasn't just gone home to bed. He's clearly going back to Juliet. Benvolio says, well, he ran this way and leaped this orchard wall. Call, good Mercutio. In other words, he ran over there and he jumped over that wall, so he hasn't gone home. Shout for him, Mercutio. Mercutio says, nay, I'll conjure him. Romeo, humours, madman, passion, lover, appear thou in the likeness of a sigh, speak but one rhyme, and I am satisfied. Cry but I me, pronounce but love and dove, speak to my gossip Venus one fair word, one nickname for her purblind son and heir, young Adam Cupid, he that shot so trim when King Cophetua loved the beggar maid. So this is another classic example of Mercutio, who just has these really outlandish, long, wild speeches that seem to be just, in many ways, Shakespeare just using the opportunity to show off his imagery and his writing. So Mercutio was saying, no, I'll conjure him up like a spirit, almost like a seance, conjuring up a dead spirit. And he says, Romeo, madman, passion, lover, Appear in a sigh, speak in rhyme just once and I'll be happy. Shout just me, say just love and dove. Say just one nice thing to Venus, one mention of Cupid's nickname, the one who shot arrows so well in the classic love story. That's a King Cophetua is a story, a classical story that many in the audience would have understood. He heareth not, he stareth not, he moveth not, the ape is dead and I must conjure him. So we've got a bit of wordplay here now. Romeo can't hear me, he's not interested, he's dead. And of course this foreshadows Mercutio, doesn't know it, but he is foreshadowing that, yes indeed, Romeo will be dead. And then he says, I conjure thee by Rosaline's bright eyes, by her high forehead and scarlet lip, by her fine foot, straight leg, and quivering thigh, and the dimensions that there adjacent lie, that in thy likeness thou appear to us. So he's saying, I sort of call you forth, conjure you, and what I conjure you by, the power I conjure you by, is Rosaline's beautiful eyes, her forehead, her lips, her feet, her straight legs, her shaking thighs, and the area just next to her thighs appear to us. Now, of course, Mercutio is, shooting wide of the mark here because Romeo isn't even interested in Rosaline anymore. More dramatic irony that we as the audience know, the characters on stage don't know. And Benvolio says to him, if he hears thee, thou will anger him. In other words, shut up, Mercutio, because if Romeo hears you, you're going to wind him up. Mercutio isn't having any of that. He says this cannot anger him. 'Twould anger him to raise a spirit in his mistress's circle of some strange nature, letting it there stand till she had laid it and conjured it down. That was some spite. My invocation is fair and honest, and in his mistress's name I conjure only but to raise up him. So basically this is more lewd, sort of bawdy, sexual sense of humour. He's saying this won't annoy him. It would annoy him if I raised up the spirit of his woman just to have sex with her. But what I'm doing is honest and fair. I'm just calling Rosaline's name to get his attention. And then Benvolio says, come on, let's go, basically. He says, come, he hath hid himself among these trees to be consorted with the humorous night. Blind in his love and best befits the dark. So he's saying, look, he's hidden himself in the trees. He wants to be alone. He wants to be in the dark because his love is blind. So, so just like he is almost blind, walking around in the dark. And Mercutio says, if love be blind, love cannot hit the mark. Now he will sit under a medlar tree and wish his mistress were that kind of fruit as maids call medlars when they laugh alone. So basically this is a joke about a medlar tree. Now my next video will go into more detail about that. But what he's basically saying is if love is blind, then you can't hit your target. He'll sit under a tree which looks like a woman's genitalia and wish his woman was like that fruit. More on that in the next video and in the ebook, detailed explanation and analysis of that. Romeo, that she were, oh that she were open, etc. Though popper in pair. Romeo, good night. I'll to my truckle bed. This field bed is too cold for me to sleep. Come, shall we go? So Mercutio says, basically, Romeo, I wish, your woman was one of these fruits and you could pop into it. Romeo, good night. I'm going to bed. It's too cold out here. I can't sleep out here. Shall we go? And of course, I'm sure Benvolio is going to jump at the chance for them to go, and sure enough he says, go then, for it is in vain to seek him here that means not to be found. So in other words, go. It's pointless looking for him where he doesn't want to be found. Now this does of course ring a sort of similarity to the beginning of the play in Act 1 Scene 1, where we heard about Benvolio saying that Romeo had been spotted in running off into the woods to be alone, and here he is again running off into the woods to be alone. But not to be depressed and not to sort of be sad, but in this case to pursue the one he loves. But there is an interesting similarity in his actions, running off, wanting to be on his own. And if you found this video useful, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And like I say, everything's written down in my ebook. Please do pick it up. The link is in the description.